As a proud Expo 86 corporate exhibitor, BCTV thanks all our pavilion visitors.
From the British Columbia Television Pavilion at Expo, the News Hour Final with Robert Malcolm.
Good evening. The fair may have racked up a huge deficit, but in every other way, Expo 86 was a smashing success. 165 days, more than 22 million visits later, the World's Fair is over. It went out with a bang this afternoon under the dome at Expo. But before that, there was one last day of celebration on the fairgrounds.
It ain't over till it's over, according to Yogi Berra, and Expo and Ernie are going out with a bang. Party, on what is otherwise a solemn day, the fair site is alive. 24 groups are participating in this public promenade. They are street performers, pavilion representatives, and local community groups. Quite a mixture. Fitting, though, for a fair that has meant something different for everyone. Also appropriate for a world-class event, there is not one but two parades here. One coming from the west, the other from the east, heading to the big farewell. Destination, BC Place. Everyone but Ernie, because he's a capital asset. With him here, three now unemployed voices.
What do you think Ernie would be saying on this occasion?
Yahoo! This is very exciting. I think we're having
This is one of the most special experiences in my entire life.
Yes,
I'm very sad tomorrow that nobody's going to be coming to visit me anymore.
Yes, but I'm running away to Hollywood on the 28th before they auction me on the 29th.
Yes, and I think tonight I should get very lubricated, say, end of Expo and everything.
Yes, we will be getting
a lot of tender, maybe some Quaker steak. Quaker good stuff tonight.
Meanwhile, it's countdown time over at the gates. The fair closed at 3 p.m. sharp. And for those who wanted and were lucky enough to get tickets, it was on to the last hurrah. But in true Expo style, there were crowds and lineups.
Let's welcome our international television audience to the closing ceremony of the 1986 World Exposition.
This is what 60,000 people in BC Place were waiting for, a festive closing to an enormously successful World Fair. Every Expo pavilion was part of the color and pageantry.
First, our host province, British Columbia.
Representatives from the American and Soviet pavilions joined hands and made a symbolic entrance. And it was the last time Expo goers heard Nancy Nash belt out the theme song for Expo 86.
Set the world in motion. Together we can catch a rising star. We can
I would like to say a special thanks to what I consider to be the real heroes of Expo 86. And that's the 25,000 people that worked on this site.
When former Premier Bill Bennett first asked Jimmy Patterson 6 years ago to head up Expo, he was assured it would mean only about an hour's work a week, but it soon became a full-time job, as Patterson stamped his own unique style on the $1.5 billion fair. For the past year, as president as well as chairman, Patterson has been putting in 18-hour days. Well, today was no different, but it was his last for Expo and BC Place.
It's still dark outside on the Expo 86 site as Patterson begins to clear his office and take care of some last-minute business. Then he's off to his final board meeting, on the way passing through the Plaza of Nations, where a crowd already building up at the stadium gate recognizes him. Patterson takes a few moments to talk to the first visitors of the day and encourages them to stay for the closing ceremonies.
You're going to like it.
Are you going to get after Ernie?
Well, there's 4 or 5 of them. I may bid on one. Anyway, We'll see you later. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Is that the sort of thing that makes it all worthwhile?
That's the kind of thing that makes it worthwhile. That's when you decide that whatever you put into it and all the heartache that goes to something like this, when you see real people that get up at 4:30 in the morning to be part of this deal. Yeah.
As the sun rises over the Expo site, the board of directors are getting ready for their traditional 7 a.m. meeting. The early start's a ritual established by Patterson when he took charge of Expo.
Congratulations for getting 100,000 more on plate than you figured, Jimmy.
Hi, boss.
The last one.
Our leader.
We never. Good morning.
Good morning.
Even though it's his last board meeting, Patterson has little time for small talk and quickly calls for order. As the early morning crowd storm the site, with visitors actually sprinting to make sure they see pavilions before Expo closes forever, the board is taking time out to record its place in posterity.
All right, 2 seconds here. Looking this way. Looking like you're pleased.
The photographs of the board and senior Expo staff make the whole occasion reminiscent of a high school graduation. With Expo virtually over, everyone will soon be heading in a new direction, including Patterson, who will return to private business. Then it's time for Patterson to hold his last news conference, this time to formally break all ties with a project he's made his life for most of the last 3 years.
Today I have submitted my resignation as the president of Expo 86, effective at midnight tonight, to the Premier of the province and the Minister, Claude Richmond. And I've also submitted my resignation as the chairman of BC Place, also effective midnight tonight.
This was also payday for Jimmy Patterson, who had been promised $1 a year to run Expo when he took over. Then, with time running out, all that remains for Patterson and Expo's closing hours is a short walk on the site.
Volunteers today.
Hey?
I'm full of tears today.
I've enjoyed volunteering too.
Thank you. Gee, there's some good parts of this job.
Great.
You think this is all bad?
Patterson is mobbed by the crowds as he tours some of the pavilions to say goodbye and thank you.
Yes. There's one more.
At midnight, Jimmy Patterson leaves public life, probably forever, and returns to his own business empire after 6 years overseeing Expo 86.
It was a dark and stormy night when, as the clock struck 12, what? Amazing. Hey, Mirage. The Mirage bar grew bigger.
The taste that defies description is now bigger.
Fantastic.
Now you get more delicious milk chocolate.
More.
This is a Sony Trinitron commercial. If you buy a Sony Trinitron or Videoscope before this year's end, Sony will give you a 5-year warranty because they last and last and last.
Hey, 3035, where's that rush package? And where are you?
When a package has to get across town in a hurry, you've got a choice. You can call a cab, or you can call Gelco Express. The only couriers who deliver across country overnight and across town too. Probably for less than it costs you now. Cross country and now across town.
You gotta hand it to Gelco. Gelco Express.
Say for a moment you were your car and you needed new brakes. Would you trust just anyone? Nope. You'd go to Speedy. They know what you're going through. They're brake experts, so you can relax. You get the Speedy Brake Guarantee and the job done right for the right price. So for brakes, go where your car would go. Speedy. At Speedy, you're not just another car. You're a somebody.
A tragic Thanksgiving for a Salmon Arm family. Father and son were killed in a helicopter crash today on the outskirts of Salmon Arm. The Bell Jet Ranger struck a power line in dense fog. A witness said the pilot appeared to be trying to gain altitude coming out of a fog and barely cleared a barn before hitting the power line. Killed were 45-year-old Dirk Zutter and his son Kerry. The accident brought down a transmission line cutting power to Salmon Arm and several surrounding communities for several hours. Thanksgiving Day, but there was no break from the election campaign for the leading combatants. Premier Bill Vander Zalm was Main Streeting in Vancouver's Chinatown, constantly badgered by the media. Finally, faced with a quote of his own, the Premier did not rule out sharing a stage with Bob Skelly in a debate.
The Premier is barely out of the bus when he's confronted by Liberal Vito Palmieri over Vander Zalm's switch from Conservative to Socred.
You do a left and a right at will. Is that the way you're going to do politics in our government?
Hey, listen, don't be too left or too right.
That's right.
Just do what it is the people want to see done for the good of British Columbia. Don't get hung up on philosophies too much.
The media event soon looks more like a running skirmish between the press and the Premier. The first exchange concerns reports IWA boss Jack Monroe is considering a libel suit over an alleged statement by the Premier that Monroe was bought off by $1 million strike donation from the Canadian Labour Congress.
Is that what you think? Was he bought off by the CLC?
Did I say that?
The words were, you wondered why he changed his mind. He said, $1 million.
I don't recall. I'm going to have to see that clip. I'm going to have to see the clip.
The Premier and his candidates move on, shaking hands and handing out pamphlets and other election goodies.
Hello. Hello. Hi, sweetheart. Hi, honey. How are you? Hello, sir.
The tour continues and the press moves in again. This time he's asked if he will try to eliminate the need for food banks in B.C.
Do you think raising the welfare rates would cut down the lineups in food banks?
Not necessarily. I think once you have a food bank, it may still be there because some people will, like I say, run out before the end of the month, regardless.
So it doesn't matter how much money they've got, they'll run out at the end of the month.
Some people will.
Next on the agenda, some time for quiet contemplation of the Dr. Sun Yat-sen Gardens. Outside, he is asked about the polls, which show voters want a public debate.
I'm not going to give Mr. Skelly the platform that he's seeking. I've got other things to do.
Then he is asked about a letter he wrote to the Vancouver Sun in 1983. He wrote then, "The only people who are afraid of debate are those who fear the loss of special privilege. Ultimately, the voters decide the outcome of a debate."
Listen, my whole life is debating. I'm debating all the time. Every time I go anywhere, I'm debating. You know, if he wants to attend one of the meetings that I have scheduled and be on the floor with the other questioners and hear about the great things that we're proposing through social credit for the future of British Columbia, he's welcome to sit on the floor. And if he asks the question, I'll be glad to respond on any issue.
NDP leader Bob Skelly spent Thanksgiving in quieter surroundings, his home riding on Vancouver Island. And his theme, in an area with a 30% unemployment rate, was jobs. Teresa Marshall reports from Port Alberni.
Thanksgiving Day in Port Alberni, and the streets are almost deserted. The only places doing business are the campaign offices. At NDP leader Bob Skelly's headquarters, the former Kelly's record store sign has been pressed into low-budget election service. But there's no shortage of free labor, volunteers working to get their MLA of 14 years re-elected. Down the street are Port Alberni Mayor Gillian Trumper's Socred campaign headquarters. The NDP took almost 60% of the vote here last time, but Trumper thinks she might be ahead now.
So we're doing a tremendous amount of door knocking.
So what are you doing then that Skelly is not doing here?
Well, he's not here. He's got his own work is working for him.
Bob Skelly has not had time to do any door knocking in his riding. This is only the second time he's been able to visit his constituency since the election was called. But Skelly says he's not worried that his absence will hurt his chances at keeping his government seat, although at the same time, he adds, it's smart to run scared in any election. The But Skelly knows he's on friendly territory here as he and his family take time out for a Thanksgiving luncheon hosted by the New Channelth Tribal Council on a Port Alberni reserve.
I've known you for quite some time, and you've always been honest with me. We're going to go all out for you.
But the hearty stew served up for lunch has more meat in it than Skelly's Thanksgiving address.
I think it's appropriate for us to remember today that here in British Columbia, there's 169,000 people who are out of work, many of those people here in the Alberni region. There's 220,000 of us, men, women, and children, who are on welfare in this province. There's an obligation upon us to change it so that the province can be better for all of us.
But Skelly's speech stirs the audience of 150 enough to raise over $700 in party donations. Over 2,000 voters have left the Alberni region since the 1983 election. Some left to work at Expo, but now that the fair is over, even if they wanted to come back, there's no money or jobs for them here anymore. Something that worries people and politicians of all stripes.
We have a special feature coming up on the life of Expo, therefore we have scant time tonight for weather and sports. Our apologies. Here we go. Weather-wise, it's a high ridge of pressure that will maintain mainly clear skies but dry weather over the province for the next few days. It will continue. However, a frontal system from the Pacific has spread clouds over the extreme northwestern interior. In sports, Game 5 of the National League Champion Series at Shea Stadium canceled. It'll be shown 10 a.m. tomorrow, weather permitting. In hockey, it's Vancouver drubbed by Quebec 7-1 after their opening victory Saturday night. Two other games in the NHL. Montreal, its first win in 3 games, 6-4 over Minnesota. And in overtime, it was Washington coming from a 3-goal deficit to beat the Rangers 7-6. 2 games in the Canadian Football League. It was Ottawa hosting Winnipeg. Winnipeg coming out on top there. And Calgary at home, the Argonauts, and they move closer to the BC Lions, 37-18 victory. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with that feature report.
See you at 8. I'll bring the wine. Bye.
The wine.
It's French.
Is it B&G?
Be back.
B&G, the most popular French table wines in the world, like Prince Blanc, Cuvée Spéciale, or Beaujolais Saint-Louis.
Hi, folks. I'm Martha Ray. You know, I was never embarrassed about coming on TV and telling people I wore dentures. That's me. Tell it like it is. And now I'd like to tell you. There's a brand new polident for us denture wearers. A super strength polident. Look, a mean food and coffee stain. Now my new super strength polident. It has more cleaning power than ever. Its mean stains cleaner, even in between. I think every denture wearer should use it.
In the world of communications, the vision of the future is no longer just a vision. And the question is now, how do we take advantage of all this new technology? From video conferencing to worldwide data connections, BCTel is introducing revolutionary quality ideas many British Columbians can really use. iNet 2000 benefits business, the arts, and sciences, linking them to online databases across the city and across the ocean. In the Arctic, NORAD's North Warning defenses will use communications equipment designed by BCTel's Microtel. On thousands of home phones, life is made simpler too. Call alert. A call is already in progress. A second call can be received.
Hold on a second, Bob. I've got another call.
Now it's a future where the information age is accessible to more people in more places than ever before.